It's time for the Hockey Writers Grind Line, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, joined in, as always, by my defense partner, Devin Little. Devin, how's it going? And again, another week closer to the draft, off-season free agency, all that fun stuff. We're going to be talking about trades and the draft in this one, so it's going to be a lot of fun. How's it going?
Going good. You might be mistaken for thinking the offseason has really already started, considering the Blue Jackets sure seem to think it has. I'm starting to get some FOMO. I'm ready for other teams to get in on the action, especially the one we're talking about today, right?
Yes. Yeah. The Blue Jackets have been ridiculously busy in the last, 5 days? Yeah. Two big trades happening, but hopefully that's just a start of some dominoes for the other teams to get going. Usually there's some trades at the draft floor around the draft. We've seen a few major ones, including the forward that we're going to be talking about in this one. Just a teaser. But before we get there, let's start with our one good, one bad. Devin, a good and a bad from the past week here.
My good is going to be the Florida Panthers making the final a series. I'm fully on board Team Golden Knights here, but I as a hockey fan, I didn't want to see a sweep. I want to see a good Stanley Cup final, and we'll see how Game 4 tonight goes. But shout out to the Panthers for that was an entertaining game too. Late tie goal and win in overtime. So good hockey right now for the two teams that are playing. And then my one bad. It's not a super big bad. I could even hear an argument that it's not a bad whatsoever. But Damon Severson's off the board now. We just talked about Blue Jackets being active. He was definitely somebody that was being linked to the Red Wings as a potential free agent target. I think he would have done a pretty good job filling in Philip Hronek's spot, but wasn't meant to be. Probably saved other teams from a big contract. But hey, it means it's time to focus on somebody else now, right?
Yeah, that's true. And so I'll go into my good. My good is the scouting combine happening, this past few days. Today was the last day as we record. But yeah, that just means the draft is it's getting closer and closer. We got a bunch of those fun interviews and those questions that they ask, weird questions that Mark will have a huge an article about. And it'll be all right now and as you guys are watching this. So take a look at that, because there's always fun questions that the different teams ask these prospects that are like, what? Why are you asking that question? There's always a hidden meaning in them, but on the surface, it seems like a weird question, some weird questions to ask these prospects, but it's always fun to find those out. And my bad is the fact that that Severson's off the board, not just for the Red Wings, but the Canucks were linked to Severson in the past for a trade. I'm sure they'd be interested in him in free agency as well. So key defenseman off the board for a few teams. The Blue Jackets getting a pretty good one there, long-term contract. And then Provorov going there too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Blue Jackets kind of move forward with this, because there's going to be some players and defensemen available from that have to trade. And the Red Wings could maybe be involved in some of their righties that are now available, I would say, because there's a big logjam on the right side. Adding Severson there, they have good Branson. They got Boquist, who I think is a pretty good target for the Red Wings maybe now. So there's some interesting guys to kind of look at now that Severson is there and Provorov's there. So they're going to be trading some guys, I'm thinking. So that'll be something to watch. All right. Well, we teased it at the beginning. Let's start talking some trades before we go with the draft later on. But this is not a pretty big forward that was traded last season and now could be traded on the move again. Alex DeBrincat, and played for the Ottawa Senators last season, traded there from the Chicago Blackhawks. And, there's rumors that he could be on the move now. And Elliot Friedman, 32 Thoughts, said that his trade list includes the Detroit Red Wings, and amongst them, Vegas Golden Knights, Florida Panthers, maybe Dallas and Nashville as well. So the Red Wings are on his list. Devin, what do you think about that? Should the Red Wings pursue DeBrincat in a trade? I mean, I'm sure it's going to be may not be as massive as the one that brought him to Ottawa. And even then, a lot of people thought that was a little bit low for a return. Do you think that, first of all, do you think they should pursue him? And what do you think they would have to give up to get him?
Yeah, I certainly think it's at least worth looking into, right? I think that you don't make this move unless there is an extension that kind of comes with it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, DeBrincat's from Michigan. I think that if he was sent to Detroit, it'd be a pretty easy deal to get a deal done with him. And the Red Wings have cap space, right? Like it's not, the pieces are there for this to happen. It's just a matter of how much is too much in terms of what they send to Ottawa. Ottawa and Detroit are divisional rivals. So, I don't think Ottawa's going to be looking to do Detroit any favors if this does go down, right? And DeBrincat's a darn good asset, so you want to get fair value too. I think that pick 17 is definitely on the table in this move. I think it has to be, because any of the other teams really would have something like that on the table as well. But then also, I will throw this out there. Let's just kind of talk about the other teams that are on this list. We got the Vegas Golden Knights. Makes sense, right? They're in the Stanley Cup final. Good place to live. They've been good literally their entire existence. But they don't have a lot of draft capital. They kind of routinely trade away their picks, their prospects. They have some pieces they could trade if they wanted to make it happen, but they'd also have to move some salary. They're capped out. They'd have to do some finagling to fit him there. Florida, kind of a similar deal. They don't have a first round pick until 2025, I don't think, or 2026. It's something crazy like that. And I think a first round pick has to be part of this somehow, some way, right? And then again, Florida would also have to make some money. Makes sense too, because they aren't capped out like Vegas, but they don't have a ton of cap space. Dallas, Nashville. Nashville, I think, is kind of a weird tweener team. They could rebuild, they could load up. We're not really sure what Barry Trotz is going to do. So I'm not super convinced they're on the list. And then Dallas, I think they're probably, if this list is legit, I think Dallas is probably the biggest threat to Detroit. They have young assets, they have picks, they have some financial leeway they can play with to make this happen. But as far as I'm concerned, I think Detroit's the best fit here. I think they have the pieces to make this happen. And it just comes down to how much is too much. I think that 17, like I said, has to go out. Probably at least a good prospect. And I probably would even say like Dominic Kubalik could probably be part of the deal too, to create a roster spot for DeBrincat, give Ottawa some scoring back, and also just send some money the other way too, right?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because, like I said, at first that trade for DeBrincat wasn't that high of a return. They only got picks for him. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if it's the same as that or more or even less. I mean, a lot of people are saying that they don't have a lot of negotiating power with
absolutely
trading him unless they do a sign and trade like, the Devils did with Severson. You don't see a lot of those. I mean, I haven't really seen one since then. I can't even remember the last time there was a sign and trade.
Matthew Tkachuk, and that was like a big deal when it happened.
Yeah. So I mean, they're rare. I mean, it's something that doesn't always happen. So, but I do agree. I think that has to have beyond the, an extension has to be there. $9 million is his qualifying offer. You got to remember that that's a pretty big qualifying offer to get him first for the RFA. So, I mean, I think that extension has to be in place. I do agree that first round pick has to be there. I don't think Ottawa's going to let him go although, like I said, they don't have a lot of negotiating thing. I mean, DeBrincat doesn't seem to want to stay and sign a long-term deal. It's going to be interesting to see what they do get for him. But, like you said, why not? I mean, look at it because he would bring a lot to the Red Wings. Like you said, from Michigan, still at, 30, 40 goal scorer that would add a lot to that top six. And I don't know. I would definitely go after him. But like you said, it's you can't pay too much for him. And like I say, the Red Wings do have prospects. They do have a pick that they could send out and still have a first round pick. They have those second round picks, like we've mentioned many times, to be added into there too. So we'll see. And that'll, I think, all depend on what the other teams do as well, of what type of offers, right?
And you could literally put 17 on the table, just that.
Yeah.
And, pretty much dare the other teams to beat that. You're not going to get a better pick than that, really, I don't think.
Yeah.
Unless Nashville does that, and I don't know that makes sense for them, right? So
yeah,
I mean, I seriously think it could just be 17 in Kubalik, and that would get it done. But maybe that's too much. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like it's Detroit. They have 2 first round picks. There's not a lot of teams that do have the 2 first rounders to offer, and then still have one instead of getting out of that first round, which is very important this year to be in that opening round this time. So yeah, it's gonna be fun and see what, like I say, Yzerman he's got a few things he could maybe do coming up here, and we'll see if DeBrincat goes to Detroit or somewhere else, or who knows, and when that'll happen as well. Okay, off the rush. Let's get to our first off the rush, and it's gonna be about a trade I mentioned at the beginning. Devin, what do you think about those defensemen on Columbus? Do you think it's Boquist that they should go after if they do go after some of those righties, or would it be a prospect? Would they even get in that market for the Blue Jackets there?
I think it's worth, just like we said with DeBrincat, I think it's worth looking into. I do like Boquist as a potential fit there. He's young still, Swedish, insert joke here. And, like you said, they're kind of filled up now on that right side. You might be able to get him cheaper than you would have, a little bit ago. Also, for what it's worth too, Boquist he's only signed for, I think he's at like 2.6 million or something like that. Super affordable. So like, it's not like you're, adding an albatross contract or anything like that. I think he's a player that has a lot of upside, and definitely, we talked about Severson could have fill that Hronek void. I think Boquist could definitely fill that Hronek void as well.
He's all, like you say, he's also really young. I mean, it's not like you're getting an older guy, and Severson would have been an older guy coming in. Not a veteran, but Boquist would be in that rebuild area where he could be part of this core going forward, which is, I think, more valuable than adding Severson. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do get into that market. I think a lot of teams are going to, calling Columbus to see what they could get for some of these defensemen. I don't think guys like, Matejchuk is not a righty, but I think he's going to be a guy teams are going to be calling on because, again, it's a guy that's going to be, adding Provorov. He's a left-hand defenseman. So it's not as loaded on that left side, but there's a few guys that are kind of taking up that top 4. Provorov and Werenski are basically your top 2 pairing defensemen there. So yeah, Columbus is going to be an interesting team to watch and what teams kind of try to get those defensemen out of there. All right, well, let's pay the bills. And before we get moving on to our draft talk, our one question here, and here's a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
Right. As we said, let's talk draft again here and talk about a Russian that's been talked about quite a bit in the last few months, month here. And then even more in the last few days, he did the Michigan really quick one. It was really quick. It seemed like he just, no, I've done this before, whatever. He was all trending on Twitter. I think it was a couple days ago. But yeah, Matvei Michkov is who we're talking about here. Okay, well, Devin, let's talk about this. There's speculation where he's going to go. He's going to go in the top 5. He's going to drop into the top 10, maybe even beyond that. I don't see it happening. I think he's going to go. He's not going to make it past Washington. But if he does fall into that, out of that top 5, do you think Detroit should trade up to try to get him. I mean, he has a lot of upside. We know his skill level. We know, like I said, that Michigan was insane. Probably going to end up being a lethal scorer at the NHL level. And as everyone knows, it bears repeating, though. I mean, if anyone doesn't know, he's got that contract that keeps him in Russia for a while. He's not going to be a guy who's going to be playing next season or even the season after that. Do you think it's worth moving up to try to get Michkov if he does drop out of that top 5?
I think that Michkov represents the type of talent that the Red Wings need. We talked a month or so ago at this point about how falling in the draft lottery has or maybe hasn't hindered the Red Wings. In some cases it has, other cases it hasn't. If you can get a player like Matvei Michkov, outside of the top 5, that's a slam dunk. That's found money. I think that it seems to be the phrase right now, but I think it's worth looking into, right? Yeah. If he's on the board at 6, if he's on the board at 7, and Arizona or Philadelphia don't seem like they're leaning that direction, see what it takes. They both could use extra picks. They're both teams that are very much building for the future, and the Red Wings can't afford to wait. They can. They've got plenty of prospects right now that they're going to be incorporating into the lineup over the next couple of years. And then once they've kind of assembled their core, they would be able to add this elite Russian kid that would take their team to a whole new level. I'm of the opinion that Michkov is closer to Bedard than he is to Fantilli. I think he's the second best prospect in this class. If he was like guaranteed to come over next season, I'd even be willing to debate him being with Bedard as the top person. I think he's that darn good. He's got that much potential. And if it's possible to get that guy, go get the guy. You can wait 3 years, go get him. It just depends on how much is too much, right? Regardless of who's available at 9, they're going to get a really good prospect there. But if you can get Michkov, he's better than anything you will find when you just stay there at 9. So, even if it means trading away Boston's first round pick and next year's draft and maybe even 1 or 2 of your seconds, I know that sounds like a hefty price, and it is, but prospects like Matvei Michkov don't come around a lot, and they definitely are. When they do come around, they're gone within the first 3 picks. And the fact that there is a possibility that he could be there out of the top 5, you got to at least make some calls and see if it's possible.
100% agree. And the thing is Red Wings haven't been afraid to draft Russians in the past. They got Puchelnikov last in the 2022 draft, and he probably could have gone higher because Russian factor is a thing, and there are some teams that are just too afraid to do it. And I think Michkov has the potential to drop out of that top 5, even though talent level, I do agree. I think he's in that top tier, top 3 at least. And he is closer to Bedard. Like I said, I've said many times, I think he's going to score 50 goals in the NHL at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He is that good. And yes, he's got some things in his game. Obviously, like every prospect needs to fix things, but his talent is just, undeniable. And it's unfortunate we haven't been able to see him in the World Juniors, World Championships, any of these things that, Bedard and Fantilli and all these guys have been able to participate in. We haven't seen him against them. So it's unfortunate we haven't seen that sample, against his peers, but it is what it is. But his talent level is just off the charts. And I do agree. I think the Red Wings that, see what it takes, because if he does fall out of that top 5, I'm sure the Philadelphia Flyers, they've already done some major trades. They'd be open to it, adding some things, and getting a guy at 9 rather than, where are they at 7?
Yeah.
6. Yeah. So it's like, why not? Michkov is that good of a talent that you want to see if you can get him for sure. So we'll see what happens.
And I wholly agree that if you just kind of roll the dice and see if he'll fall to 9, it's not going to happen.
No.
Washington will take him. You got to be able to leapfrog Washington to get him.
And like, if Washington doesn't, like I said, there's something wrong if Washington doesn't take him.
I would be dumbfounded. Like,
They know something, right?
yeah, no, literally though. At that point, if they pass on him, then it is like, okay, hold on, back up. What's going on?
Yeah. So I'm sure they've asked Ovechkin about him.
Yeah.
Sure, he knows. All right. Well, I mean, like I say, that's another interesting storyline we'll be watching at the draft, because where Michkov goes is going to be a fun thing to watch for sure. Okay. Well, Don returns in our comment corner here, and he's got a question, and it's about Steve Yzerman, and it's just a simple question: is Steve Yzerman the best GM in the NHL? And there's a lot of good GMs in the NHL right now, but do you believe he's the best?
Yeah, it's a simple question, right?
Yeah.
We're here on a Red Wings show, right? So it's hard not to just be like, yeah, for sure, come on. I think that it's not super biased or super out there to say that he's one of the best GMs in the NHL. I think a lot of people would agree with that statement. I might even say he's probably top 5. Like, I think if you really had to sit down and name the top GMs, I think he'd come up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing that holds him back from that distinction is he hasn't personally won a Stanley Cup as an executive. Yes, he built the Tampa Bay Lightning, but when they won the cup, he was with the Red Wings, so he doesn't technically get that credit.
Yeah.
But the proof is in the pudding. He did build a Lightning. He is engineering this rebuild for the Red Wings, and it does seem to be going pretty well. I think so long that the Red Wings rebuild does continue to go in the right way, and they do end up becoming a Stanley Cup contender, I think that that's when we can really start saying he very well might be the top GM in the league. I think he makes he wins when he makes deals. I think he wins more than he loses. I think he is really good at identifying diamonds in the rough. I'm thinking of guys like Jake Wallman.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it before. He's kind of a throw-in that deal. Now he's a top pairing defenseman who makes that deal, right? And I think that he does a really good job of trusting his scouts and just kind of letting his people do his people. He's made good hires, whether it's Derek Lalonde, scouting team in Tampa Bay and Detroit, for what it's worth. I think he's got all the credentials to be considered one of the top GMs. I would love to hear someone argue against that statement. The best GM in the NHL, I don't know who I would say is the top one, to be honest with you. I just don't know if I can say Yzerman has earned that distinction quite yet. Give it time, though. Maybe even 5 years from now, he might very well be top 3, top 2, top 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's probably in that top 5 range right now. And I think, in my opinion, I think Julien BriseBois is right up there as probably one of the top. Because what he's
missed a beat from Yzerman, right?
Yeah, there you go. The way he's been able to deal with the cap and with that team and move, getting guys. Yes, he overpaid for Jeannot, I think, quite a bit to get him. And I mean, we'll see how that kind of pays off later on, but it's a lot to give up for a guy that's going to play in your bottom 6. Brandon Hagel definitely turned out to be quite the trade at this point. And so, I mean, I think BriseBois is probably up there. Yzerman, definitely, I'd say top 3 for sure at this point. And if the Red Wings win a cup under his watch, I think he does end up being one of the best, or one of for sure. So we'll see. I think he is up there for sure.
His number is already retired as a player. If he's able to lead this team to a Stanley Cup as an executive, I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to name the arena after him or something, because they've got those bronze statues of Howe and Delvecchio and Lindsay. You're going to make one of him for sure. If he gets this done.
I can see it for sure. All right, let's get to our final off the rush. Actually, I have a couple questions I thought of here. First one is, we talked about Michkov being a guy you trade up for. is there someone else you would trade up from 9 if they were still available and they were falling? There's a couple guys that could potentially fall into that category, I guess. It's happened before where teams have reached and got, where, what was it, Boucher, that Senators picked and just screwed up everything. Arizona Coyotes picked Barrett Hayden, dropped guys down. Say, I don't know. I don't know what player would you try to move up if they started falling from that top 5 where they're supposed to go?
Out of the top 5, to be honest with you, I don't see any of the other 4 falling. I'd be shocked if a Will Smith or a Leo Carlson fell out of the top 5. And if they do, then blow up somebody's phone. Go get them. Go. Don't let them go 6th overall. Don't let them go 7th overall. One player that comes to mind that might be worth the trade up is Zach Benson.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there's a very realistic shot that you don't have to trade up to get him.
Yeah.
I think he could fall to 9. I mean, if you talk to the right people, they might tell you he might even be there at 17th overall, just depending on how you feel about size and what his NHL projection is. But so I guess what I'm saying here is that outside of those top 5 guys, I don't know if there is anyone I'd jump up for, but if one of those 5 guys do drop, then blow up somebody's phone, make that happen.
I do agree. I don't think there's anyone, I'd be really shocked if Carlson dropped out of the third 3 spot. I don't think Columbus is passing him. There's even talk that Anaheim could potentially pick him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, after the scouting combine, there was a couple of guys that were saying that they think he could be definitely a top line center, and could play in the NHL pretty quickly. So I don't know. I mean, Anaheim may try and just get Carlson at 2 and Fantilli drops to 3. And I mean, I think Columbus will be fine with it, but that's another interesting one to find. But again, they won't drop out of the 5. A guy that I could see, Benson. But I think I do agree. I think he could drop into that maybe even into the beyond the top 10, because like I say, that size, it seems like teams are just hesitant sometimes to pick a guy that high. That's why Cole Caulfield dropped far he did, and he shouldn't have gone that low. So we'll have to see.
I'll counter and say that if Benson is falling and it seems like he's going to fall, quite a bit, then maybe he's somebody trade up from 17 to go get.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, it's not always the one, not the higher pick. It could be the lower pick that you're moving from. So it'd be interesting. I forgot my second question. So let's just end with that one. I had it in my head and now it's gone. But maybe it'll come back as we're going here. The draft is a very interesting day, that first round, because there's so many guys that there's one. Here we go. Here's a question: is there someone, just from what we've heard from the scouting combine so far, is there a guy you want the Red Wings to go after more now that you've heard a few of these interviews, a few of the scouts kind of talking? I know Dan Marr's been talking about Etienne Morin. He would pick him over any of the other defensemen first. Is there anyone now that you think the Red Wings should be going after a bit more than before?
Yes and no. I feel like I'm going to give you a really underwhelming answer here. I don't invest a whole lot in the scouting combine, and I think it's probably because I'm not there.
True.
I'm way more interested in what you do on the ice than how many pull-ups you can do.
Yeah.
I'm way more interested in how you interact with your teammates than what answers you give in an interview format, right? So at the end of the day, the combine doesn't move me too much. If I'm down on a player and they impress me at the combine, then I might give them a second look. But for the most part, at this point, I've kind of made up my mind on people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's bad on me. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But, and like I said, maybe it's just because I'm not at the combine. I'm not there to ask questions. But at this point, We're a couple weeks away from the draft. If you're like getting blown away by players, I don't think you've done your homework. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think the scouting comment just adds a bit more information to guys you already know.
Kind of like final notes,
Yeah, final notes. I don't think you're swayed all of a sudden. You're like, I never knew this guy existed. Let's get this guy now. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Dan Marr probably he liked Moran before the scouting comment. It's not like he all of a sudden thought that he loves him now because he's at it was just a comment. And I'm like, a guy that's projected to be in the second round, he should be Trojan first over Axel Sandin Pellica, David Reinbacher. I don't know. I mean, that's a guy that's just kind of jumped in, but you never know. I mean, teams are higher on other guys than, we've seen surprises where defensemen go. Nolan Allen.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. That's a perfect example of
that is a perfect example.
And fourth round, something like third, fourth round, and goes in the first. So,
and that's kind of case in point, right? Where I say maybe it's because I'm not there. The teams that are there that are talking to these players, those answers and those results clearly mean something to them.
Yeah.
They're the ones who at the end of the day have to make these picks and their reputations are tied to. Me, I can say without any really worries that I don't really care what happens at the combine. It doesn't, my job's not on the line when I say that, right? So
sure.
I don't know.
But it does add things. I think
absolutely.
There's always those players that all of a sudden get more attention after the combine than they did before. And I know there was I can't remember the prospect that couldn't do a pull-up at the combine, and all of a sudden everyone's freaking out.
Sam Bennett.
There you go. And what he is now. I mean, it's not. Who cares? Like,
he sure seems like he's a strong guy to me. Like,
yeah. So I mean, like there's stuff you can glean from the scouting combine, but I think you don't put your whole opinion based on that. Yeah. So there you go. Okay, well, that's another episode of the Grind Line here. Thanks, Devin, joining again. We got some great stuff we talked about here. Keep those comments coming. Don, ask another question. Keep going. The draft is coming up. We got 2 episodes before now? As we look at here. Yes. 2 episodes before we get our draft recap show. And that'll be a fun one. And we'll hopefully get a few guys on there to talk about who the Red Wings actually picked. And if they did trade some of those second round picks, or they chose them all, and that we'll see what happens. And that'll be pretty much right after the draft, because we'd be scheduled the draft ends 29th. We'll probably be recording on the 30th or July 1st, free agency start. So we'll have a lot to talk about. I think we'll have some good things. All right, though, make sure checking out HockeyWriters.com, all the Red Wings content there. We got draft target pieces coming out. We got off-season stuff. We got whole bunch of content, and of course Grind Line, and take a look at our mock draft we did last week. If you haven't watched that already, there's we did the first 2 rounds and it was a lot of fun. We got some good picks. We'll see how many actually come to fruition, if any, but that was fun to do. So take a look at that, and follow us on Twitter, keep following us, and keep those comments coming, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Grind Line.